The cabinet has cleared a rupees 2 lakh crore proposal to restructure the debt of the state power boards. But the question is whether this will address India's long-term energy problem or drag the government lenders deeper into the red. Just 7 of the country's 28 states, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Madhya Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh have between them accumulated losses of rupees 1.9 lakhs crore from power distribution. The government stimulus package is a step to save these companies going into deeper losses. Years of populism, corruption and mismanagement have driven the power distributors, most of them state-owned, deep into the red. The country's state-owned distribution utilities are drowning in losses and were blamed for triggering probably the worst blackout in history in July. To talk on impact of government proposed bailout package on financial health of SEBs, we have with us Mr. Anil Razdan, former Power Secretary, Government of India. Mr. Razdan, the power bailout package announced on 24th September by the Union government is an important move to rescue the sector from imminent bankruptcy. What would be the short-term and long-term impact of this bailout package on financial condition of DISCOMs?
This is providing an immediate relief to the distribution companies, which were otherwise, I think, finding it difficult to even procure working capital. They've piled up short-term loans for about 1,90,000 crores or close by, and the financial institutions were not prepared to give them any further loans. At the same time, the financial institutions were unable to see how those monies can be recovered, what's given out. So I think a deeper distress was with the financial institutions also, because they virtually stopped lending to these institutions. So by this arrangement, wherein about 50% of the amount would be securitized through bonds and the state governments would be securitizing them gradually, they would also be getting working capital from these banks to carry on their day-to-day activities, because after all, power which they are purchasing has to be paid for. Immediately in the short term, I think this relief is forthcoming. Number one, it has provided relief to the banks. They've not had to declare some of these assets as non-performing assets. And secondly, the distribution companies have also got a breather to put their house in order. But in the long term, I think regulation as well as proper realization in advance of subsidy in terms of the 2003 Act, that will have to be ensured. Because if these institutions, that is the DISCOMs, fall into bad ways again of indiscipline, you will again have a crisis in a few years. But meanwhile, I think this is a breather that has been given to them. The finances can keep coming with restrictions, and the state governments who are in ownership of almost all the distribution companies would be forced to get formal ownership now also through these bonds.
Well, the scheme makes the state government as a party which stands as guarantee between the bank and the DISCOMs. As many states feel that this bailout package is not for states but for banks and financial institutions. The package is open for acceptance from state by December 31st. According to you, what would be the willingness of the state in accepting the scheme?
See, it is absolutely dependent or optional on the state whether to adopt this package or not. If they can provide otherwise for the timely return of the loans that the financial institutions have provided to them, they would be well within their rights to do so. That's if their financial position allows them to do so. But if they do not have those monies immediately, then I'm afraid if they want to keep supplying power 24 hours to their citizens, they will have very few options.
Well, some experts say that power package is a bailout package for politicians and not DISCOMs, because if there was no bailout package, these states' power sector would come to grinding halt, resulting in an anti-government movement in these states. Therefore, this bailout package saved these politicians.
I think it's a very cynical view of the situation, because the fact is that these distribution companies were in acute distress. But we were moving towards at least a strong browning out situation where large power cuts, if you can't afford to buy power, then you buy only the cheapest power that you can afford. and which may not be available for 24 hours, may be available only for 8 or 12 hours. So I think that the regulatory system will have to get tighter, and politics should be taken out of tariff setting and supply of power, because we are interested in the long-term welfare of the citizens and of the service facility, not in immediate electoral gains or populist slogans.
Though the plan is flawless, but political will is needed to implement it. It is performance linked, and SEBs should take concrete measures to improve the operational performance, and tariff rationalization should also be done annually.
The states need to keep, I think, two things in mind. One is that they have to ensure, or rather the distribution companies have to ensure 100% metering of all consumers, so that all the energy that is flowing into the system is accounted for, right from the time it is generated to the last point of consumption. The other point is that the subsidy which is promised for subsidizing some sections of the population must be paid in time and in full. In the past, sometimes it has not exceeded 60% of the promised payment. This ought to stop. The greatest onus is now on the regulators, who have to stop creating regulatory assets as they did in the past, in the hope that future better performance will clear the present tariff requirements. Regulatory assets should be banned. Whatever is the cost of supply will have to be recovered by the revenues or by the subsidy. And there must be foolproof arrangements of advance subsidy. Otherwise, the regulators would be well within their rights to summon the distribution companies or even representatives of state government to ensure that the monies are given in advance and these distribution companies don't fall into distress. You have schemes like the restructured APDRP scheme, which is offering liberal incentives to implement such program, at least in cities, towns. The separation of feeders, agriculture, rural, these should be carried out. You have to bring down the AT&C losses to single digits, I think, in cities, and overall they should not exceed about 15%. And they should come down further through better technology, through better grid management and better discipline.
After enactment of Electricity Act 2003 and unbundling of SEBs, establishment of SERC and various other firm decisions, it was expected that power sector reform process would accelerate. But even after 9 years, the combined losses of DISCOMs are more than 2 lakh and central government is going for the bailout package. What could be the major reason for complete failure of power sector reform process in India?
See, the basic elements of reform are known to everybody. That what you have to do, how you've got to maintain your systems efficiently, technically, how you are to meter everybody, make sure that the last unit of electricity is accounted for and paid. But if you don't execute a good scheme in letter and spirit, you're going to land into problems repeatedly. It's the regulators who've to virtually oversee that the customer is protected, the quality of supply is good, and the right economics has gone into tariff setting. And now, hopefully, you see in the new scheme, with the lenders being also on the boards of these distribution companies, I expect better corporate governance.
Thanks, Mr. Razdan, for joining us on Power News and sharing your views.